Hi, welcome back to Walk, Run, Soar. Today is day 36 and we're going to do 2 today. So this is part 1 of day 36, number 45 in the book, Running Against the Wind. I like this one because I relate to the wind thing. Her verse is Mark chapter 6 verses 47 through 48. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. So she talks about this race that she ran called the Sombrero Half Marathon in Simi Valley. And it sounded like kind of a cool race because they give out sombreros and street tacos at the finish line. So that's really fun. And they say it's a flat course, which it ended up being, a fairly flat course. But what she wasn't counting on was having to run in the wind, and there was a lot of wind. She said that when they got there, they saw a porta potty careen across the parking lot. That's how windy it was. So she started the race and it felt like she was running but not going anywhere, which I'm sure a lot of us have experienced, running in the wind, and the wind is coming at you. You just feel like you're not moving very far. And she ended up having to call her husband to meet her somewhere on the course with sunglasses and chapstick, because there was dust and dirt flying into her face, and I'm sure her lips were starting to feel chapped. So, I mean, that's crazy wind. And she says, I remembered the disciples in Matthew 8 who found themselves in a boat in the middle of a storm. The wind whipped against them and waves started to spill over the side of the boat. Meanwhile, Jesus was napping. The disciples woke him up. Matthew described it this way. The disciples went and woke him up, shouting, Lord, save us, we're going to drown. Jesus responded, why are you afraid? You have so little faith. And of course, we know the rest of the story is he got up and told the storm, to calm, and it did. And we looked at that story as an example of how the disciples weren't trusting who they had in the boat with them to keep them safe, and to not be afraid because Jesus was there with them, and that he had control of things. So Jesus demonstrated his power over nature, and the disciples were amazed. Who is this man, they asked? Even the winds and waves obey him. And she reminds us who created wind and waves and everything in nature, and of course he created them. He has the power over them. And she says, the wind often feels like the trials we face in this life or the pushback we feel when we're following Jesus. Maybe you are like me, too often relying on your own strength to weather the storms. And she shares how the enemy will use this as an opportunity for us to feel isolated, alone, or helpless. And that, a key tool I think the devil uses is to, get in our heads like that and forget about where our real strength comes from. She shares Exodus chapter 14, verse 14 reminds us, the Lord will fight for you, you need only be still. I like that verse. Our job is to trust God even when the wind is blowing us back on the trail. Isaiah 54:17 affirms us, no weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Friend, we have to cling to these truths and remember Jesus is always in the boat with us. Sometimes he calms the storm and holds back the fierce winds. Other times he helps us run through them. That's very true. I've shared before how sometimes when bad things happen or things are just really not going my way or a friend of mine's way or anything like that, how those are always the times I'm just like really wishing I could see the big picture, because I'm like, I don't see what the good is in these particular situations. And I know that there has to be some good because that's what God's word tells us, that nothing is an accident and God can use everything if we let him. But it's a hard thing sometimes to see when you're right in the middle of it. Our faith step. Can you think of a time when you felt like you were running against the wind? Maybe you experienced this in a race or in one of life's trials. How did you get through the wind? What strategy would you offer someone else who might be feeling pushback or struggling today? I know that sometimes I just need to take a moment And you know, life can be like so busy, crazy. We feel like we just got all these things we got to do. But I think all of us have the ability, even if it's just for 30 seconds, to stop and be still, like that other verse said, and just remember, you know, God's got this. He can help me through it. But it's taking the time to take that 30 seconds. I mean, 30 seconds is nothing in the grand scheme of 24 hours, but it can feel like a good time just to breathe. So that would be advice I'd give somebody. And I, a lot of times, need to take my own advice, and sometimes I forget. Our inspirational quote is from Jesse Owens, 4-time gold medalist in track and field at the 36 Olympics. I always loved running. It was something you could do by yourself and under your own power. You could go in any direction, fast or slow, as you wanted, fighting the wind if you felt like it, seeking out new sights just on the strength of your feet and the courage of your lungs. And our training note from Coach Sean, as temperatures dip, a windbreaker vest or jacket will keep the chill off your chest and block the wind from cutting through you. I hate that feeling. Sometimes I will, even if the temperature's fine, if it's windy, like crazy windy, I'll just run on the treadmill because I just hate the wind. But especially in the winter, I do not like the wind at all. It really does feel like it cuts right through me. Also, start a run slower than normal to give your muscles and lungs extra time to warm up. Have a dry set of clothes readily available after a run in cold weather. This will help you cool down at a controlled pace. I like that. So that is our part 1 for today. I hope everyone's having a good Tuesday. It's kind of at least we have warm temperatures. I am grateful for warm temperatures, but it's just been overcast for like the last 24 hours, which just makes me feel like sleepy and I just want to crawl in a blanket, and of course I can't because I got things to do. So I always look forward to when I see that sun start to pop out. So hopefully it'll pop out in the next day or two because I don't like this overcast thing. But I hope everyone's well, and I will see you for part 2 of day 36.